With all the stories making the headlines now this Monday night, it's the ITV News at 10.
We're not in the clear. LA, the city on standby for more fires if forecasted strong winds whip up. Nearly a week on from what's being called the most devastating natural disaster in US history, we return to one street that will never be the same again.
What's the house without a neighborhood? There's no neighbors, there's no friend.
And then a reunion with the firefighters who saved his house, as this architect promises to help those who lost everything rebuild. Urgent action is being taken in preparation for what might lie ahead as the death toll rises to 24. Also on News at 10 tonight, the young mum who killed herself after being attacked by her partner. He is found not guilty of her manslaughter in the first such trial of its kind. Putting his trust in tech, the Prime Minister's great AI drive to drive economic growth. Will it work, and what it might mean for you?
What are the jobs of the future that parents should be talking to their kids about?
AI will disrupt many people's workplaces, but AI will also mean that we have a more pleasurable, exhilarating, satisfying experience in the workplace.
And Happy New Year, Welsh style, the valley that works to its own calendar.
This is ITV News at 10 with Nina Hossain.
Good evening. The last couple of days in Los Angeles can hardly be considered a lull in the efforts to contain the worst wildfires the city has ever experienced. But strong winds are expected to return with a vengeance from tomorrow, and we know what that could mean. But before we get to what America's National Weather Service is predicting will be more explosive fire growth, we've been back to one LA street engulfed in flames last week. What Robert found illustrates the fine line between heartbreak for some homeowners and tearful relief for others. Of the 5 fires that have been burning over the weekend, the 3 main ones, Hearst, Eaton and the biggest, Pacific Palisades, are still being tackled by firefighters. Our correspondents Robert and Romilly are on the ground on the edges of the Palisades fire zone. We'll have the latest from Romilly shortly, but first here's that report from Robert on Paradise Lost and family treasures found.
5 days ago, we watched Haverford Avenue burn. Today, the flames are extinguished. Where homes were being consumed in front of our eyes, now there is an eerie silence. But what is the future of this ruined street and this ravaged town?
Climbing this hill to get to the top.
Among those sneaking back in is Farhad, an architect, evading police roadblocks to discover the fate of his home. Do you know if your house is standing right now?
I'm going to go see.
As he reaches Haverford Avenue, his fears grow.
It's shocking. People here, I knew, a whole bunch of them. Huge building here is gone.
This is the moment of truth.
This is my house. Right.
Almost miraculously, it is untouched by fire. That's remarkable, given that these are the views all around him. He struggles to process how random the destruction is. You're mystified.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand how this didn't burn, that burned, this didn't burn.
There is a reason that Farhad's house was saved, and we saw it last Wednesday. the singular effort of Fire Truck 10 and its crew, including Andy Chan.
This one's already gone, so we're trying to keep it from communicating to this complex on this side.
Who battled to keep the inferno from spreading. But then a realization nothing will be the same again, even with his home intact.
Well, you know, it feels good. But what's the house without a neighborhood? There's no neighbors, there's no friend.
Paul and his daughter Ella were among those neighbours. Living directly opposite Farhad, they also have come back briefly to check on their home. It is an apocalyptic scene.
I think this is the bottom of our dining room table.
This is the true loss out of all of this, not the possessions, but actually connections and community. Used to be paradise. It's truly paradise lost.
It's just hard to even understand or even imagine. It's just heartbreaking, not for me, but for the whole community as well.
Paul, will you stay or will you go?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to be painful to look at it.
The randomness of the fire, why some homes survived and others were reduced to rubble, mystifies Paul as well.
This is my neighbor Farhad, a really nice architect, and it's unbelievable that his building survived while mine burned to the ground. Nothing is left.
Down the street, the police have arrived, wondering if these brothers are looters.
No, the thing is that you're not supposed to be here. Yeah, no.
In fact, Philip and Thomas have come back to retrieve something from their house, the most precious possession from the family safe.
Yeah, they're still warm, actually. The real treasure is some sketches. My dad draws a lot, so we had like the best sketches we're putting in there.
Their father has dementia, and the retrieval of these drawings will be a light in the darkness for all the family.
This will be really important for him and for all of us that, you know, we got something back from the rubble.
But these brothers say the family will not attempt to rebuild.
For my parents, I think they're too old to want to go through that process, so for us it's just a chance to move on.
The three sets of neighbours are all making different choices. Philip and Thomas are leaving town forever. Paul and Ella are undecided. And Farhad is committed to staying. And he has a final request. Can he meet the firefighters who saved his house? We find Fire Truck 10 and Andy Chan a few miles away.
I wanted you to meet this man.
How you doing, sir?
Ramon.
Brandon.
Thank you, man. What was it like? How did you do it?
We did what we could.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
Everything is burned. Everything is burned around me. I can't believe it. I'm standing. It's a miracle. What you guys have done is a miracle. I'm an architect. I'm here to help rebuild. Maybe you saved my life for that reason. I don't know, but I intend to make something out of it for sure. Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Daunted by the scale of what lies ahead, Farhad looks down on Haverford Avenue and the sea of devastation. The architect has a new mission now, to help rebuild the town that has suffered.
Utterly shocking. You've spent 5 days in that community. Can it ever recover?
Well, that, frankly, is the question everybody is asking. I think the answer depends on whether federal, state and local officials can overcome their sort of long-standing acrimony and frequent sort of political jostling. Certainly the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, are promising to make sure that sort of construction permits are fast-tracked, that the environmental issues that so often bedevil reconstruction in California is overcome as well. But it must be said that this is California and Los Angeles in the age of Trump. So lots of the politics here is toxic and the recriminations are already emerging. There's certainly anger amongst many residents here that the political class has failed California, that they have prioritized landscaping and vegetation management over people. That's certainly a talking point amongst Trump supporters. And there's also bafflement that this scene here behind me could happen in the richest state, in the wealthiest country in the world. So there is a sense here that in very many ways this is not just a natural disaster, but a man-made one too.
Robert, thank you very much. Thank you. The Los Angeles Fire Department will be better prepared this week compared to last. For example, fire engines have been positioned ready for any new outbreaks fueled by tomorrow's high winds. But the LA fire chief insisted today the city was not in the clear. We must not let our guard down, she said. The number of dead now stands at 24, with at least another 23 missing.
100 feet down the hill, that's where we're going to anchor in.
Working 24 hours at a stretch, fire crews are grafting on the ridges and hillsides above LA, trying to steal an advantage over the fire before the weather turns against them again. This was the heart of the Palisades fire, the most ferocious blaze. The ground's still smouldering here. Crews are clearing any dry brush and hosing down hotspots, likely to reignite when the winds blow in.
We're still in a very precarious position right now. Fire can walk, run, jump and fly. And what we mean by that is with those embers. So with this wind that can carry those embers into that unburned fuel to reignite this fire.
The surf still laps LA's golden shores, but the city has never looked like this. The area already damaged by fire is the size of the whole of Cardiff. Over 100,000 evacuated and 13,000 homes and other buildings destroyed. Among them, Wendy's. She's sleeping in an emergency shelter with her paralysed son and 2 daughters, and she's exhausted.
All I grabbed was my son, carry him out, and that's all I took. I didn't take no clothes, I didn't take no paperwork, I didn't take nothing. All I was worrying about, carrying my son to the car, that's it.
You didn't even manage to leave with anything, not even your phone?
We lost everything, we practically lost everything what we had. So we got to start from zero to start all over again.
It's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's pretty hard when you lose everything.
Wendy's son Eric didn't want to be filmed, but he did want to say this.
Yeah, it sounds like your mom is an amazing woman.
Yes, she really is.
Yeah, yeah. She takes good care of you.
She really does.
LA residents are trying to help families left destitute by the fires. This enormous donation centre is entirely organised by volunteers. A continuous stream of cars arriving with clothes and food, exhausted evacuees able to take whatever they need. The cost of the fire is already estimated at over £200 billion. Fire teams and equipment have arrived from all of California's neighbouring states, Canada and Mexico too. They're prepped and vigilant. The question now, will it be enough? Romilly Weeks, News at 10, Los Angeles.
How the next few days play out depends, of course, on the strength of the wind, whether it accelerates the flames again and grounds the water drop aircraft. Martin is here to take us through the firefighting problems. Martin.
Yeah, well, Nina, there are still 3 fires which are being grappled with. They are Hearst, Eaton and Pacific Palisades. Now, Hearst is now 95% contained. Eaton, the second largest, an area roughly the size of Northampton, is 33% contained, and Palisades, which you just heard from Romilly, is roughly the size of Cardiff, is still just 14% contained. And the big fear is, after a calm weekend, the winds which have spread these fires are picking back up, with gusts now forecast of up to 70 miles per hour. The good news is there's plenty of water in California to fight these fires. The bad news is it's often been in the wrong place. The reservoir, in fact, nearest to Palisades, which holds 440 million litres, was empty before the fire started. Initially, as levels of other reservoirs quickly lowered, so did the water pressure, meaning hydrants, particularly those uphill, stopped working. And London actually experienced a similar loss of pressure during the Grenfell fire.
If water is not delivered at the right time, at the right place, with the adequate quantities, it's extremely difficult to confine the fire and its impact, and very quickly that fire can go out of control, very similar to Grenfell Tower.
Now, fighting fire from the air is effective, but it can be tricky in the wind. There are, though, now 84 aircraft involved, including helicopters, which can carry water, as well as firefighters. Then you've got large tankers dropping red fire-retardant chemicals. They're dropped not onto the flames, but nearby to stop the fire spreading further. And water bombers, able to scoop up 6,000 litres of water in just 12 seconds and then bomb it onto the fire. But most aircraft can't or won't scoop up water from the nearby Pacific Ocean. Why? Well, because salt is corrosive. It can destroy firefighting equipment, it's less effective at cooling, and the salt can contaminate the land, meaning a short-term fix, putting the flames out, could have a devastating long-term impact. And if you look at the burnt-out homes, you'll notice it's often just the concrete chimney stacks which are still standing. That's because most homes are constructed of wood, because it's cheaper and more earthquake-resistant, but it's flammable. And if you're wondering the reason why the homes appear to have been burnt more than the trees, well, that's because construction timber is dry, whereas trees can hold thousands of litres of water. So as LA braces for the next few windy days, 14,000 firefighters have now been deployed, numbers bolstered by professionals from the US states, Canada, Mexico. In fact, even the Ukraine, fighting a war of its own, is offering help to be sent to California.
Martin, thank you. Back to Romilly now, who is in Brentwood in Los Angeles. Romilly, the emergency services under intense pressure to prepare for the worst.
Yes, Nina, that's right. And they're really throwing everything they've got at this. I'm on the edge of the Palisades fire zone. This is an evacuated area. You can see the National Guard behind me with their armoured vehicles preventing people from returning to their homes. And we've been up in the hillsides all morning looking at the preparations going on. There are hundreds of firemen up there. It is intense, dirty, back-breaking work. They're cutting fire breaks by hand. They're digging out tree roots where fire could still be burning, and they're hosing down embers as they see them. As you walk around there, you can still feel the heat radiating from the land, and any spark up there could ignite into a new conflagration as the winds come in. And the layout of LA is really not helpful here, because you have densely populated areas like this that back onto the hillsides and the woods where the fires can really easily spring up. They have done what they can. There is fire retardant spread out across this whole area. We've even been speaking to firemen who say they've been sleeping in their trucks because they don't want to leave the area. They are taking no chances, but there is real nervousness about the forecast.
Yeah, you can see why. Romilly, thank you very much. Well, at this time of year, Los Angeles and Hollywood in particular should be cranking up for the awards season, but more of the build-up events have been pushed back again today. Nina is here. This is an ever-changing schedule. What is the latest you can tell us?
You know, make no mistake, entertainment bosses in LA are under a huge amount of pressure to get the tone of this thing right. Awards season, yes, it's very glamorous, but it's all about hard economics. More than 600,000 people work for the entertainment industry in LA. The Oscars alone make about $170 million, and they need money right now. So that is why it's changing all the time, just in the last few hours. Let's go to the big one, the Oscars. Now, the voting deadline had been due to expire yesterday. It's been extended again to January the 17th. Now, that had been the date of the Oscars nomination this Friday. That was then moved to the 19th. Tonight, it's been moved again. It's been moved to next Thursday, the 23rd, and it will be a virtual event, rather like COVID again. There were a whole load of events that were planned for this weekend. One of the big ones, the Critics' Choice Awards. That's a good indicator of the Oscars. That has been moved to the 26th of January. The BAFTA's Tea Party, where nominees meet, very important for voters, that has been cancelled. And the Craft Awards that have been due to take place in the weeks leading up to the Oscars, the Writers' Guild Award nominations, it should have been on the 9th. It was moved to today. and it's been postponed with no date given as to when that is going to take place. The Producers Guild Award, the same thing has happened. Now, that leads us to the next very major awards coming up, which, of course, is the Grammys. It's in just 3 weeks' time. And what we know is that there have been talks potentially, is it going to go ahead? What we're hearing tonight, just in the last few hours, is that it is going to go ahead, but that it will take on the form of a fundraiser, if you like, and an event that will honour the emergency workers. So it's really hard to have these events and get the tone right in the face of such incredible devastation. The Oscars are due to take place on March the 2nd, and what we're hearing is that they are due to take place, and that will actually happen. There'll also be a music fundraiser, also announced today, that will take place at the end of January, again, to make money to rebuild the infrastructure and to support the emergency workers.
OK, thank you very much for all of that, Nina. Thank you. To other news now, and Israel's retaliatory war on Hamas in Gaza is tonight edging towards a phased ceasefire after 15 months and 46,000 Palestinian lives lost. With a week of his presidency left, Joe Biden announced this evening that a deal is within grasp. John is in Tel Aviv for us tonight. John, why now?
Good evening, Nina. I think the answer to that is the Trump factor and his warning that there will be hell to pay if both sides don't at least sign on the dotted line by this day next week, Trump's inauguration day. Now, this evening, Joe Biden gave that speech touting his foreign policy credentials, and I dare say he would love to have been able to announce an end to the Gaza war, but he wasn't able to do that. However, earlier today, his national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, did outline just how close we are.
We think those details are on the brink of being fully hammered out, and the parties are right on the cusp of being able to close this deal. Whether or not we go from where we are now to actually closing it, the hours and days ahead will tell.
For several months now, Israel has been prosecuting a pointless war in Gaza. It's been a waste of time and lives. They haven't had an achievable goal or strategy. They've been losing soldiers every day, 5 more killed today. So a ceasefire now makes sense. It will also please Donald Trump. Hamas's negotiating position can only get weaker, especially if more Israeli hostages die in Gaza over this winter. Also, Nina, they look very isolated with the degradation of their allies in Iran and the weakening of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Everyone involved in the negotiating process made positive noises today, and I think the only lingering reason for any pessimism, in fact, is the fact that we have been here before, only to see things fall apart at the last minute.
John, thank you. Thank you very much. A man blamed by his partner in her suicide note for driving her to take her own life was not, as her family had wanted, found guilty of her manslaughter. Ryan Wellings did become the first defendant to be tried by a British jury of unlawful killing by domestic violence after a suicide. He'd mentally and physically abused Kiana Dawes for 2 years. In the end, Wellings was only found guilty of assault and coercive and controlling behaviour.
There's blood everywhere, help! Help me. Help me.
What's happened?
Pregnant and terrified. After 2 years of prolonged abuse, Kiana Dawes was left battered and broken. Eventually, in July 2022, Kiana could take no more, leaving her baby with a friend before taking her own life. Left alongside her daughter was a note written on her mobile phone that read, "I fought hard, I fought long. I went through pain no one could imagine. I was murdered. Ryan Wellings killed me." But today a jury at Preston Crown Court cleared.
The girl was brought to my home a few hours after Kiana was found. I truly hope that no other young lady or child has to go through what he did to my daughter and her baby. And I just wish with all my heart that I could bring it back and say, it's okay, you're safe now.
So he's pushed the door into you, has he? Yeah, he smashed the door straight off me.
Right.
Over 2 years, Kienna had been slapped, her hair ragged, and Wellings had threatened to take her teeth out with a drill. This was one of several visits from Lancashire Police. Tonight, 3 of their officers face misconduct hearings over their handling of the case. Kienna had previously never pressed charges against Wellings, but when she did and he was arrested, he sobbed in the back of a police van. Wellings denied manslaughter and became the first defendant to be tried before a jury for the unlawful killing of his partner after suicide following domestic violence. Once the verdicts were read out, Wellings gave a thumbs up and blew a kiss towards the public gallery. Kienna had an emotionally unstable personality disorder, a vulnerability exploited to such an extent she believed her life was no longer worth living. Rachel Townsend, News at 10, Preston.
A day that began for the Prime Minister with a big policy speech promoting artificial intelligence got overtaken by questions about his support for his Chancellor. Downing Street ended up having to make clear Rachel Reeves would stay in the job until at least the next election, after Sir Keir Starmer stopped short of saying so. He was focused on explaining how AI could drive economic growth and improve public services.
200 years ago, we lived through the steam industrial revolution. Today, it's the artificial intelligence industrial revolution that'll transform every aspect of our lives, from diagnosing cancer to catching criminals to how young people learn in schools. And at a time when the economy is stagnating, the PM says he wants to make the UK what he calls an AI superpower to restart growth.
The opportunities of this technology, they're not just going to somehow fall into our lap. This is the global race of our lives.
Now, in all industrial revolutions of this magnitude, there are shocks to the labour market. Some people's pay is flattened, other people lose their jobs.
We are absolutely making sure that we're focused on working people and on jobs and what happens to them.
Among the 50 initiatives are increasing by 20-fold the capacity of supercomputers owned by government and universities, creating a national data library of health and other information vital for training artificial intelligence, recruiting AI experts from around the world, adapting regulation to the needs of this revolutionary new industry, and creating AI growth zones to accelerate connecting new data centres and supercomputers to the national grid. The UK doesn't have a single supercomputer in the world's 50 most powerful. It's too little too late.
But we're starting from a low point when it comes to compute, but look at what we're doing.
And what are the jobs of the future that parents should be talking to their kids about?
AI will disrupt many people's workplaces, but AI will also mean that we have a more pleasurable, exhilarating, satisfying experience in the workplace, because we'll be doing more of the things that plug directly into our talent.
So here's an example of a typical email.
Even now, at Octopus Energy, an AI programme generates answers to even quite complex questions asked by customers.
About 45% of all our emails are composed with the help of AI, and customers rate the help they get more highly than when it's just from a human. Going forward, we're already experimenting with voice AI, so that, and we know some companies are already using it, so that when you phone up, some of the conversation may be had with AI. Of course, we wouldn't deploy that until we give better results than we do today.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Not normally a good sign when the men in white coats turn up, unless I suppose one of them is the Prime Minister and he's promising to deploy technology to make us richer.
Yeah, they're focusing on the future, but right now the government and the Chancellor are under real pressure over the economy.
That's right. Tonight, or rather earlier on today, the Chancellor heard something from the Prime Minister that no minister ever wants to hear, which is that the Prime Minister has full confidence in her. It may sound positive, but Prime Ministers are only forced to make statements like that when their ministers are under pressure. And the Chancellor is under massive pressure because literally just weeks after one of the most ambitious budgets of modern times, 70 billion raised from borrowing and taxes, she's run out of money. And the reason for that is because the interest rates that the government has to pay on its debts have risen to levels we haven't seen for years and years and years because investors have got really very downbeat about the growth prospects for the UK. Now, what we heard from the Prime Minister was some very, very ambitious proposals to accelerate this industrial revolution, really important industrial revolution that's coming from artificial intelligence. And I have to say, I think that his package of measures is bold and over the medium term may work. Now, there's a lot that could go wrong, let's be absolutely clear, and we are talking years for the growth to come through. So at the end of this month, the Chancellor has to give the speech of her life. She's going to give a big speech. She's got to tell all of us how she's going to get growth up in the shorter term than what this AI package will deliver.
OK, Robert, thank you very much. Thank you. It is a sight to behold. Every 12 years, a tide of Hindu worshippers have begun taking part in the biggest human gathering anywhere in the world. The Kumbh Mela is held in northern India and lasts for 45 days. Between now and the last week of February, nearly 500 million people will head to a place where the Ganges meets two other rivers for a spiritually cleansing dip. Finally, head to Cwmquine in West Wales at this time of year, and in one respect at least, time appears to have stood still. Today, the 13th of January, the locals have been celebrating their New Year's Day. It all dates back to 1752, when calendars were changed to deal better with leap years, except Cwmquine didn't make that particular leap.
Time moves slowly in this remote valley in West Wales. In fact, they're 13 days behind the rest of us. Happy New Year, they sing, in return for gifts known as Calennig, because for centuries here in Cwmquine, stubborn residents have refused to shift their traditions to fit with the Gregorian calendar. Many children take the day off school, but it's not just a jolly. There's a lot of ground to cover and many doors to knock.
As highlights of the year go, is it one of the best days?
Yeah.
Up there with Christmas or not quite?
Not quite.
But nearly?
Yeah.
It's important to keep it going because it's a event that's been going for years in Gwaun Valley now. I think the calendar changed in something like 1752 and it's just gone from strength to strength.
In the mid-18th century, Britain and its empire ditched the Julian calendar to fall in line with most of Europe, but not here. Generations of people in this North Pembrokeshire Valley have refused to let go of those precious 13 days. Quite why they resisted has been lost to the mist of time.
This tradition isn't just about pocket money and sweets, but about community. Many of the farms in the area open their homes and put on a spread.
Vivian Davis was born in this farmhouse. He says this kitchen has hosted generations of children.
But my wife and I, we've been here 55 years. So we've been doing it ever since we got married anyway. Yeah. And my mother used to do it before that. Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to do it. Yes. You know, it's nice to see the kids coming around and keeping the old tradition going.
Even newcomers adjust their New Year calendars. Jess from Yorkshire brought his pony to the pub today for his first Hen Galan, or Old New Year celebration.
I admire them for their stubbornness, their sticking to it, despite it being a bit off.
Tonight, the Dyffryn Arms is packed as they ring in the new year and ring the last drop of enjoyment out of 2024. Rhys Williams, News at 10, the Gwaun Valley.
And that is just about all for tonight. Tomorrow, a week on from the LA wildfires taking hold, the city is braced. The Santa Ana winds that destroyed so much in the Pacific Palisades area aren't expected to be as strong, but they still threaten to undo the work of firefighters and threaten more homes in places like Altadena to the north of the city. As the Los Angeles fire chief put it today, we are not in the clear yet. From everyone here, good night and thank you for being with us.
The government says